everyone. We're really looking forward to sharing information on how Google surfaces timely and relevant information on search and some general best practices governments and authority entities can implement to ensure their information is more discoverable. My name is Angela Crocker-Lewis. I lead strategic partnerships and search for our economic security vertical on our social impact team. I am typically based in our New York office, but am in North Carolina right now. And yes, I'm among the many people struggling for gas down here. The crisis is real. So that is where I'm currently, but again, based in the New York office. And my team covers things like education, civics, elections, health, among many other topics. And we'll discuss a couple of other things today, led by some of my co-presenters. So Kenton, he is a product manager in our search ecosystems team, and Daniel is a search advocate on our developer relations team. And we'll also hear from one of our partners. I can't believe it's been a year, but we've been working with Bill, actually over a year, but we've been working with Bill, who's a project manager at the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, but also a content manager for Career One Stop, which is how our relationship started, as we were looking to improve how we were highlighting information around unemployment claims as well as job seeker guidance. And so Bill will take us through how he's used some of these best practices and tools for Career One Stop that we'll talk about. So we'll cover a few areas today. First, we'll talk about how search responded last year in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, all the way through today, and some of the work that we're doing to address recovery. Next, we'll hear from Kenton, who will touch on Question Hub, which is a new tool that we just released earlier this year. And then Daniel will close us out and discuss structured data and Search Console. And then we'll have a Q&A portion at the very end. Hopefully we'll have about 15 minutes. And as I mentioned, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A along as we go, but we will take them all at the very end. So we'll spend a majority of the time today talking about the tools that are available for content publishers, but I first wanted to share more on how we've responded to this unprecedented time due to COVID-19. And before we get into some of the details, I wanted to take a step back first and really orient ourselves around the work that we do in search and how we deliver quality information in search. And when we talk about surfacing timely and relevant information, it's first really important to talk about how Google approaches our definition of quality and reliability. And there are three key elements to our approach for information quality: ranking, authoritative information, and policy. So ranking is really where we design our systems around quality to identify information that people are likely to find useful and reliable. We have a variety of language understanding systems that work to match words and concepts in your query with related information in our index. But we all know that words alone can't tell us whether something is quality. And so this is where we actually leverage signals to bring in more of that human element into our system design. So these are just clues about characteristics of a page that align with how humans may interpret high quality or reliable information. So for example, the number of quality pages that link to a specific page may be a signal that this is a trusted source on a topic. So if you, as a government site, might link out to other sites, that might be a signal to us that something is really quality. And for topics where quality information is particularly important, so like health, civic information, or even crisis response, we place an even greater emphasis on these factors related to expertise and trustworthiness. And we've really built our systems to identify signals from sites that demonstrate authoritativeness and expertise, as they're less likely to publish false or misleading information. And we view our systems really as the greatest defense against low quality content. Next is authoritative information. And in most cases, our ranking systems do a pretty good job. But in areas that have really high impact to users, again, things like health or in times of crisis, we develop features to make information from authoritative organizations like local governments and health agencies available directly in search on the search results page. And we'll discuss more on this in later slides that I'll go through. as that will be the focus of what we'll talk about today. But lastly, we have policies for what can appear in our search features to make sure that we're showing high quality content. So in the event that our systems might fail to prevent policy violating content from appearing, our enforcement team will take action in accordance with our policies. This is everything from ads and sponsored content all the way to hateful or spammy content as well. So that's just a little background on how we consider, again, quality and reliable information in search and our approach to that. And I'll also link in a blog post which goes into this in a bit more detail once we close out this section. So building on the element of authoritative information that we touched on in the previous slide, I want to discuss a bit more about how we worked with authority entities in and during our COVID response last year. So as you can imagine, users coming to Google searching for information about coronavirus or COVID-19 really skyrocketed last year. And soon after the health crisis started to unfold, so did the economic crisis, and we saw a dramatic increase in searches for government benefits. And actually, we were just talking about before people joined how we're actually seeing another uptick as states are starting to make changes to their UI programs. So it's really important to remember that everything that we do is really oriented around the user and what users are coming to search looking for. And specifically in the US, we saw an increase in terms related to topics around unemployment, SNAP, and small business loan information, as you can see on this slide, with the big peak happening in March of last year. And so what followed was really a global mobilization on our side to meet this unprecedented demand. I'm just saying that somebody can't hear. Can other people, I can only see Daniel and Kenton. Can you all hear me? Okay, never mind. Okay, we're good. Okay, good. I was worried. I was like, oh no, I've been talking for a while. That would be really bad if nobody can hear me. But anyway, what followed on our side was a global mobilization. I remember this time last year and a few months before, really just working with colleagues around the world to meet the demand of what people were looking for. And it was really important to understand the top intents, or like what specifically people were looking for, like what were they actually coming to search to try to understand. And then B, work with global, national, and local health authorities to identify pages with the most relevant information on those topics and those intents so that we could surface it easier. So here you can see an example of our COVID results page, which is still live today. But this highlights information like symptoms, prevention, and statistics. And we worked with organizations like the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization to, again, identify pages that had content and information about these different categories. And as time went on and more resources became available, we also added that. So things around testing or coping, like the Be Kind to Your Mind campaign that the CDC did to help people understand some of the mental impact that COVID could be having on their lives. And then we also had a local resource section where users could find information from their local health authorities. Again, we realized what people found really helpful was like what was going to impact them on their everyday lives on a day-to-day basis. So obviously some of that national or international stuff and news was important, but local information was really, really important. And we still see that today, which is why we have the local and national resources that highlight information from the local health authorities and local agencies on this information. And where governments may not have had information related to COVID-19 alerts or, again, information on these top intents, we activated our teams to reach out and understand where these pages might live or how we could help them understand the information that they should be focused on publishing, again, so we can make sure that it was highlighted in search. And then we also identified whether these authorities had Twitter handles and pulled those into the experience as well. So everything here really was driven around what we saw users looking for in terms of how we determined the information to highlight from these different authorities. And very similar to the COVID experience, it was clear we really needed to help users more easily navigate information around government benefits, as we saw a significant increase in people searching for this information. So unemployment, or worker assistance as we refer to it more globally, was a huge topic, as all of a sudden millions of people were out of work and they wanted to understand how they could apply and claim for benefits. And as we're also aware, there has been an increase in SNAP benefit claims in the US due to this economic hardship. And in both instances, we saw top intent around eligibility and how to apply and general information. So we launched search experiences highlighting this information. And right now, if you search for terms like unemployment or SNAP, you may trigger this experience, which again has links from local agencies around this information. And in the fall, to kind of build on the work that we did, we actually presented a very similar webinar where Bill came on and talked about his experience with Search Console and structured data to UI program directors at the National Association of State Workforce Agencies, so that we could share these best practices and they could ensure that the pages that contain this content were updated and really easily navigable for users, knowing that so many people were coming to their sites looking for information. And also, I'll call out, given that many of you might represent some of these agencies, and we know your customer service models are, constantly evolving based on demand. You could submit feedback, which is with the little, call out boxes there in the search page if you have any updates related to hours or phone number, or even if your websites change, right? You can submit that feedback in the tool. And we know that organized government resources are obviously really important during crisis and recovery. But one of the main things that we want you all to take away today is how they are important for users' everyday needs. We really encourage governments to adopt structured data on relevant pages because it really does help them navigate and find this information much more easily. And we'll talk more about that in the latter half of this presentation with some of the topics that Daniel will be discussing. But structured data is just a standardized format that content publishers can publish their information so search engines can more easily read and organize it. So we have an example here from gov.uk, which is the website run by the Government Digital Service of the United Kingdom government, where they implemented structured data on 1,500 of their high traffic pages. And they covered everything from how to vote and how to obtain a driver's license, even to information about public holidays. And they really liked this approach because it enabled them to make sure that, or to update the format of their content without having to create new applications or create new platforms so that surfaced in search. So actually, Erica just dropped the link to the blog post. Thanks so much, Erica. To where gov.uk talks about their experience in marking up their pages. So again, we'll talk more about on what structured data and markup is. But again, we wanted to emphasize that this not just in times of crisis, but really it's great for anytime governments are offering services or information that users might find helpful. So now there's the question of where do you start with some of this information? What is structured data and how do I identify content and information that can be helpful? And so structured data is really helpful when you know what users are looking for, right? And it's what we'll get to in Question Hub. Google Trends is also a great way to kind of understand what's trending. And so that's helpful to understand. And then it's also helpful to understand how to monitor and assess performance of the pages. Once you implement structured data, understanding how people are finding your site. What are those keywords that are leading people there, or how is your market performing? And that's where Search Console comes into play. So with that, I will invite Kenton to present some information, again, on a new tool called Question Hub that we just released. And he can walk you through more about what that does and how to sign up.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Angela. So hey, everyone. My name is Kenton. I'm the product manager working on Question Hub. Really excited to be able to share this product with you today and to walk you through how you guys can use Question Hub to better serve the citizens and the public that you work with every single day. If you go to the next slide. So what is Question Hub? So the way I like to frame this is, imagine you're a content creator and you need to create new content. The question becomes, what do you What topics are people searching for right now that don't have robust answers or results today? Maybe it's something around how to apply for unemployment benefits or what kind of job search assistance is available for newcomers. Now with Question Hub, you can find these types of questions, specifically questions that Google search users are today aren't finding any robust results today. At Google Search, our core mission is to organize information to find the most relevant, useful queries. But in the times that sometimes content just isn't there, that's why we created Question Hub as a way for content creators to help fill in those content gaps on the internet. So basically what happens is once you see these questions, the questions that Google search users are searching for that don't have good results today, you can then create content to more easily answer them so that you can help Google users access the government more easily. If you go back to the previous slide, Angela, if you look on the right, so one really interesting stat search is that every single day, 15% of queries on Google are new queries that we've never seen before. What that means is that there are lots and lots of questions that are so new that there might not yet be a robust answer for it yet. So if you ask me, being able to answer Question Hub is a really good opportunity for governments to be even more responsive to their people and to help them get the answers they need to make life easier. Let me go into more details. So if you go to the next slide. So how exactly does Question Hub work? So it's a simple 3-step process. The first step is that Google collects unanswered questions directly from search users. If you've used Google search recently on your phone, you might have noticed that on some searches, at the bottom of the screen, there's a box that shows up where you can submit your own question. With this feature, users can submit questions and let us whenever they haven't been able to find the content that they are searching for. This box triggers right now whenever we determine that a user's query might not have very good results. So that's the first step. We collect those questions. The second step is we take all of these questions, we parse it, and then we deliver these questions to content publishers through Question Hub. Content creators like yourself can explore questions that are relevant to your expertise. And then finally, in step 3, content creators like yourself can use these insights to create answers to answer unanswered questions to better serve the public. If you go to the next slide. So how can I find out what questions users might have about government services and other programs? So there's 2 different angles we like to look at this from. If on one hand, you're really interested to find the unanswered questions that users have on Google, then that's what Question Hub is for. You can log in and find all of these questions. On the other hand, if you're trying to find the most popular search queries that may or may not already have robust results on Google today, then you can use Google Trends as well. So the way we look at this is these 2 tools are complementary to one another. We encourage everyone to use both Question Hub and Google Trends to make sure that you're finding as many questions as you can about government services and then answering them. Next slide. So on Question Hub, you'll be able to find questions on a very wide variety of topics, whether it's things like municipal services, like transit, state services, like food benefits, or even federal services, like tax refunds, immigration, Social Security, and so forth. All of these questions, you'll be able to find real questions from Google users in Question Hub. So here we've actually pulled a few examples from Question Hub from users who wanted to know, for example, if you look at the top left, one person was wondering, can a mother of 3 apply for low-income housing? On the bottom left, does the government have to notify you if your SNAP benefits have been cut off? And then the bottom right, is there a day that the Georgia unemployment updates their payments? So all of these questions are unanswered questions that would really benefit from the result. Next slide. Just to make this a little bit more concrete, so we wanted to showcase a case study to illustrate the impact of Question Hub. So at Question Hub over the past year, we've seen that many users have had many questions about the pandemic. As an example, during the early days of the pandemic, users wanted to know what kind of over-the-counter medications were best for treating coronavirus. At the time, the University of Chicago was actually using Question Hub to find unanswered questions. And in their own words, they said, Question Hub gave us insight into COVID information the public was looking for that wasn't adequately addressed by healthcare organizations or news outlets. We quickly crafted new content to answer questions, and this new content is among our most popular pages today. Next slide. So Question Hub is available to everyone in the US right now, as long as you have a Search Console account, which is very easy to get. Daniel's going to talk a little bit more about it. If interested, feel free to sign up at questionhub.withgoogle.com so that you can help answer questions that the public is looking for answers for. And with that, I'll hand it off to Daniel to talk more about structured data.
Okay, and I think I'll stop presenting, and then Daniel, you will take over. Oh, if you're speaking, you're on mute. There we go.
I think it's going to be better. So yes. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to talk about two things today. The first one is structured data and how it can help your website to become more successful at search. And then I'm going to go on to talk a little bit about Search Console and how to use it to crawling, indexing, and serving of your website in Google search, and again, be more successful at search. So first of all, in terms of structured data, just to give a very brief explanation of what it is, structured data is basically a standardized format. It's an HTML markup that you can use to provide Google with more information about your pages so that we can show it in a more relevant context to our users. So that will help Google understand so that we can show it in more ways to users. We call it rich results. So basically it's richer. So you'll have more information shown on Google search results about your website. And I'd like to use a quick example of a great example of USA.gov. They use structured data on the unemployment help page. And maybe many of you will know this page, and you can get information on unemployment. And what they did is they implemented the FAQ, frequently asked questions, structured data. And I'll talk a little bit, I'll show how it changes the way that we surface the information on Google search. So first of all, this is how it looks like. So what you're seeing here is a Google search results page. And this whole bit that I'm focusing on is a search snippet. And usually what you'll see if you don't have structured data is just the title, the blue title with the snippet, the description. Now the part below is the structured data. And I'd like just to say a few words about how you can optimize your snippets. The first thing that you can do is you can use your HTML title tag on your pages. The title tag is a markup that you can use to provide the title to the page so that we can show as the title of the search snippet. We use other things as well, so it's not 100% that whatever you use, we're going to use, but it informs us, and we'll try to use the title that you provide. You can also use the description meta tag, which also helps us understand what the page is about. So it's an abstract about the content that you provide on the page. And the last bit that I'm showing here is FAQ structured data. And basically what it does is it provides a lot of extra information about your page to Google so that we can show it. And what USA.gov did was to provide us with structured data on questions and their answers, so that users, they can click these drop downs, and then they'll get more information and extra links to deeper information on the subject. So the way that it looks like, and here I'm showing the results from the rich results test on it's a tool that Search Console provides that you can use. You can input any URL on the web, and we'll show you what kind of structured data this page has. So here you can see how they implemented the FAQ markup, and that may help you, one, understand what other people are doing when it comes to structured data, and two, debug your own structured data on your pages. And just a parenthesis, in this tool you can also you can include a code piece. So if your page is still not live, you can still check that out on the tool to see if there are any errors before you move it to production. So that's very helpful, very handy in the development process. So I really recommend the rich results test. Now, before I move on to Search Console, I would like to give a few tips on search engine optimization in general. Those tips, they're focused on government websites, on some challenges that we've seen along the way. The first one, which is really critical, is that Googlebot cannot be blocked, because if it's blocked, then Google cannot crawl the website and we cannot show the information to our users. So people won't find the content on Google search. I'll talk about a report that you can use just for that in a bit on Search Console. Second one, use heading tags to emphasize important text. And I think that's not just for the web. It's also like if you're writing an essay, that's the same thing. But on web pages, very often the pages are very long. And you not only search crawlers, but also users, they'll scan the page to see what's important and what's not. And using heading tags helps both Googlebot and users to understand what the page is about and what's really important in the page. So make sure you use H1, H2, H3 heading tags to emphasize the text. Third, improve site navigation with internal links and information hierarchy. That's especially important for government websites that, well, they have a huge amount of information. Usually they have information on very different things, and it's really important, because those websites are very heavy when it comes to content, to make sure that the pages are linked between themselves, because so that, again, not only search crawlers but also users, they can find all the content in the website. So both internal links, site navigations, footer, and all kinds of navigation helpers. Then always include the date in Newsroom press releases. This is super important, and we see that sometimes government websites, they forget about that. And that's, I mean, if you have new guidelines, it's really important for them to have a date. Otherwise, they're less helpful to users. So make sure to remember to add a date to all the press releases. And last, avoid putting information inside images or PDFs. So if you're sharing information with the public, do not just publish a picture with the text inside, because it's much harder to read, and obviously for us, it will be harder to crawl, to index, and to show it to our users. So those are some tips to improve your search engine optimization. And you can see here on the bottom, there is a link, goo.gle/SEO starter, which is like the full guidelines that we publish for websites to know what we value when it comes to optimizing for search. Now, with that said, I would like to talk a little bit about Search Console and how to use this tool to optimize your search performance. Now, the first thing, for those of you, maybe some of you haven't heard about it, Search Console provides data and tools to help website owners improve their websites and optimize their appearance on Google. That's what we do. We're basically a data tool, and we try to provide data on how Google sees your website when it comes to crawling the data, indexing it, and serving it to users. So those three things, that's what we focus on, and we're trying to make as much data available as we can. Now, just to help understanding more or less where we fit into the ecosystem, there are three main big parts in this ecosystem: users, the web, and Google. So websites like your websites, they are constantly publishing new content, and Google is constantly crawling and indexing this content so that they can serve it to users. Obviously, without the users, nothing happens. So the users, they're searching for information on Google, and we're trying to show the most relevant information for them so that they can keep and go to the web pages. Now, Search Console, as you can see here, we are in between Google and web publishers. So we provide information on how we see your website, and you can provide us with information on things like, we fixed something that was wrong with the website. Can you please tell Google, or you tell Google that we fixed it so that you can crawl it again and index. So that's what I'm going to talk about now. And Search Console, we have, it's three main things that we do, right? And we're trying to answer three questions. One is there anything wrong with my website? How to fix errors and tell Google to validate them? And how can I optimize my performance? So those three things are the main things that we're trying to answer with Search Console. And I'm going to provide some examples of reports that you can use for that. So first of all, alerts and checks. Every time, and I'm not going to go into that here, but in order to use everything that I'm talking about, you'll need to verify your ownership of the website, because obviously we cannot provide you data about the website before we know that you own the website. So after this presentation, you can search for Search Console, and you'll go through a flow to verify ownership so that you can have access to these reports. So the first thing that you need to know is that if there is a new issue, if we detect a new issue with your website, we'll send you an email saying, well, there is a new issue, maybe you should look into that. It will be a big blue button that you can click through and go to a report that specifies or gives more details on the issue. Here you can see it's an email about the new mobile usability issue. Will lead you to the mobile usability report. You can drill down into specific errors. You can see here on the bottom of the screenshot, there are specific errors. You can go to those errors and check which pages have the issue and try to fix it. Now, we also have a report. So sometimes you need to, sometimes an issue that already existed gets worse. So you need to, once in a while, check the reports and see if there is anything going the wrong way. And here I'm showing a report for the FAQ markup that I just spoke about. And you can see some aggregate metrics. And from this report, you can drill down into specific issues that are happening with the website. And you can see examples of pages that have those issues so that you can debug and fix them. And in order to fix and debug your issues, you can use a tool that we provide called the Inspect URL. you'll see on the top of the page, on top of all the Search Console reports. And URL inspection, you can input any URL on your website, and will provide you with coverage status. So things like when's the last time that we crawled the page, where did we discover the page, what's the canonical selected for that page. So various types of information that you can use to debug any issues. We'll provide you with all the page enhancements, which are the structured data issues that we found on the website. You can view the crawled page. So if there is, you can check the screenshot. That's how we see the page. You can check the rendered HTML, and you can learn about how exactly we're seeing this page. And then the last thing, you can test a live URL. So if you had an issue with a page and you fixed it, and you want to see in real time if the page was fixed in our eyes, then you can use the test live URL to see how we see it right now. Another thing that is important to know is that once you debug and fix your issue, you can go back to the report of that specific issue, and you'll see here a button called Validate Fix. So if you fixed any error, you can click that button to tell Google that, well, I fixed that error. Can you please reconsider? And then Google will recrawl the page and provide you with feedback. You can track your progress, and we'll provide you with notifications on where we are on the status of your fix. In terms of monitoring and optimizing, so I spoke before about not blocking Googlebot a few slides before. And so this is a report that you use. It's called the Crawl Stats, and it provides you with your site's general availability. So what's if we can crawl the website in basic terms, it provides you things like average page response time. So for example, it's not a good thing if the response time is going up. Google might think that maybe your server cannot handle Googlebot and might stop crawling. So that's something that it's important to monitor as well. And also you can see a breakdown of all the requests made by Google, either in terms of what kind of file type, what kind of agent was used to crawl your website, and more information. And last, one probably the most used report, or one of the most used reports on Search Console, is a search performance report. And here you can monitor the trends. So you can see things like which queries users they searched for when coming to your website, which pages they accessed from search to your website, which countries they're searching from, devices and search appearances, so all the rich results you'll see here. And you can use that to find growth opportunities. So for example, if there is queries that you think you should be ranking for and you're not, maybe you should create more content about it so that you can start ranking for those queries. And you can also understand your audience, so things like countries and devices that they're using. So that's a very interesting report for you to monitor and optimize your search performance. And so in summary, you can use Search Console for 3 things: alerts and checks, fix and validate issues on your website, and monitor and optimize your performance. So now Bill is going to talk a little bit about how Career One Stop is using Search Console.
Great, thank you. Yeah, my name is Bill McMahon, and I am with the state of Minnesota. However, I spend full-time working on the U.S. Department of Labor's Career One Stop program, which is sponsored by the U.S. Department of Labor Employment and Training Administration. The state of Minnesota has a grant to provide online resources for employment and training. We concentrate on everything from job search tools and resources to finding training opportunities and finding help. And that could be local help, or in the case of what we're talking about today, it could be how do I file for unemployment insurance. And we have always had a unemployment benefits finder tool on our site. We're national in scope, and so people who are often Googling around or looking around or searching around for how do I get help with unemployment, we rank very high. We ranked high before the pandemic, but it was nowhere near what we experienced after the pandemic took hold. So we were approached by Angela's team after the pandemic started taking hold in March and April, and they had noticed our FAQs. So along with our tool, we have a frequently asked questions section that's quite popular because unemployment insurance can be very confusing. I think in the pandemic, some of the first questions people ask are, where do I get unemployment? Who administers unemployment? Where do I go online to get my apply and so forth? And it is a complex program. It's administered by the federal government, but it's run by the feds, but administered by states. So they have discretion as to how they implement their online services for unemployment benefits, and discretion as to what kind of technology and platforms they have. So our Finder tool helps route people to the right spot. And when we initially talked to Angela's group, they liked our FAQs. And again, they mentioned quality and authoritative nature of those FAQs. And we spend a lot of time trying to write them so that they are indeed authoritative. We work with DOL on that, try to make sure that we're writing very consistent, clear information, concise, and those FAQs were noted by her team. And that's where we're introduced to the tools that we're talking about today. So one of the things that we learned from Search Console is that indeed, literally we went from average amount of people searching for unemployment to millions overnight. And we were able to see how they were clicking through our benefits finder, and we were advised on how to mark up our FAQs using the structured data. So I just wanted to mention that, again, the guidance about how to put structured data together was very clear. We had non-technical people essentially read the documentation and write the, set up the markup and give it to our tech team for implementation. And immediately we started seeing the results. The traffic to the FAQs went up. We could see in Search Console that the FAQs were in fact in place and which pages they were on, and that all worked quite well. So we continue to work with the team during the pandemic and still do. And we looked into Question Hub. Question Hub had some excellent ways for us to look at the kind of questions that people were asking about unemployment. And we noticed that as the pandemic went on, our FAQs were featured in many search results, along with state FAQs and state information, which is where people really need to go to find assistance. So we were able to see these questions get more specific. And again, we do, if people stumble upon our site, we quickly route them to where they need to go. And we keep up to date on the new websites that states put up for pandemic unemployment. Some states, as you know, there was a new category of unemployment insurance called PUA, which was commonly known as gig worker unemployment assistance. So we have links to those sites as well. So it's been really invaluable for us to implement, track, continue to look at how what's going on out there, how people are finding us, and I mentioned before the session today that we are experiencing an uptick in unemployment questions, and related to the today I learned that it's up to about 11 states are not going to provide the $300 a month additional benefit. And so this is a big concern to folks, and they're wanting to understand how can they get information about that. So that all went great. We also are marking up as the pandemic unfolds. People are looking in for job search now. They're looking for training opportunities, and every state in the country has, and every region has job centers sponsored by the Department of Labor called American Job Centers. They may be called something different in every state, but they're local offices that provide universal services for finding employment, helping you to find training opportunities that could be paid for potentially by the Department of Labor. And so we are about to mark up those government offices with structured data. And we think that will certainly help people find their local help faster. That local help could be virtual too, but those offices will tell folks how to get virtual services if that's what they're offering and so forth. So that's had a great experience, and I'd recommend everybody take a look at all the great resources that are very accessible and easy to use. And with that, I'll turn it back.
Thank you very much, Bill. So just to finish the Search Console section, I just would like to make some self-promotion. So I have a Search Console YouTube series, and it's called the Search Console Training. It's available at goo.gle/SCT for Search Console Training. And in that series, I go through all the reports on Search Console. You can try it out. And also there is a video about best practices when it comes to government search engine optimization. So check it out. And with that, I'm gonna hand it to Angela. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thanks, Daniel. And actually, if you could just keep going and go to the next slide, since there's only one left, that would be awesome. So I'll quickly run through this so we have time for questions, and we've been engaging with some of your questions in the Q&A. But Bill touched on this a bit. I think one of the major things to understand is we are really focused on high quality and reliable information and search, and we really place a great emphasis on making sure this trustworthy information to our users, and on really important topics, like I said, like health, finance, civic information. We place an even greater emphasis on finding that authoritative nature. And then second is using structured data and Search Console to really manage and understand the performance of your website and how to publish your content. And also Question Hub as well as a new tool to really use at the intersection of all of these resources to understand maybe queries that don't have great answers. So we do encourage you, if you are not necessarily the person that would be implementing this information or best practices, please do share this with your technical teams and familiarize yourself with Search Console. I did drop in a one-sheeter into the chat, which has the link that Daniel had to his YouTube series, as well as all of the other links that we referenced on the page in the presentation today. And it will also be posted in our booth. So this one pager will be posted in our booth, so you can feel free to access it there, or share the booth information with anybody else attending the conference so that they can find it as well. So that concludes our presentation. So thank you really much. Danny, if we could advance to just the thank you and Q&A side, that would be great. And then we can go over to the Q&A section. So if you could put your, I know some people have dropped some questions into the chat, but if you could also put them in the Q&A, that would be great, so we can just make sure that we cover as many as we can. Some we replied to directly in the chat, so it might be helpful to first focus on the ones that we don't have a great response to. So Daniel, this might be for you, but someone asked, can we use ML to read information inside images or PDFs in reference to improving search? It's a tough problem for sure, but should be possible in theory. So maybe you could just speak to your point that you made on information and images and PDFs. I think I know the answer to this, but I'll let you take it.
I mean, it's not that it's not possible. It's just that it's much harder and it's less certain that we'll do it. So, I mean, we it's possible to read information from PDFs and images. It's just not certain that we'll do it for every page and in every circumstance. So that's why best practice is, if you want the text to be easily read by Googlebot, then it's going to be better for you to use text.
Yeah. And I think also the key thing here is allowing things to be as frictionless as possible, right? Which I think is one of the, what we're kind of getting at with Daniel's response is it's not impossible, as he said, but we are looking to reduce the friction between what you're publishing and what is more easily discoverable in search. And so that's why we really encourage an information to be on a separate website so that we can more easily discover it. So the next question I think is for either Kenton or Daniel. But Megan asked, since local needs and services vary, can Question Hub and Google Trends be refined to look at regional level differences? And because I played around in the tool, so you can always add in your like city or region into either of those tools to see what is populated. But that doesn't always mean that there's going to be a lot of content or a lot of questions. It really just depends on the volume of people that are asking. But I'll let Kenton expand that.
Yeah, so yeah, for sure. That's a great question, Megan. So Google Trends is a really good place to get a macro view of different search terms that are trending in states and different cities. If you go onto Google Trends, I believe you type in a search term, the second box from the top, I think it's the second one. I think it's called something like interest by subregion. In there, you can click between different states and different cities, and that'll tell you for a particular search term in which cities it's trending in. For Question Hub, like what Angela said, one good way to get at this would be to type in, for example, unemployment Hawaii, unemployment New York, to see people that are searching for a particular topic in a particular region, and then B, what types of questions they're looking for specifically. I actually just tried doing this 10 minutes back. I typed in unemployment New York. I found a few good specific ones for New York State specifically, so that's a good way of finding those out.
Awesome, thanks. So we answered that question in terms of the screenshot. There was another question on trends and Question Hub to be refined and looked at the global level. So I think Kenton's point is you can use it on either scale, although Question Hub Note is not available in terms of the tool everywhere. It's only available in select countries, but I'm pretty sure you can just check on the different questions from anywhere around the world, right, Ken? Okay, so that is, we'll move past that one. Hopefully that answers your question, but Kenton, do you want to add?
Question Hub, yeah, so just to add on, Question Hub's available in 4 different countries right now, US, India, Indonesia, and Nigeria. So if those countries are of interest, do regional comparisons on, then you can definitely use Question Hub, similar to what Angela said. Maybe type in like unemployment India or unemployment Mumbai, and then do like a city by city comparison. That's one good way of getting at that as well.
Awesome, thank you. And someone else brought up a really good point in the chat that I just wanted to read aloud in terms of accessibility concerns with PDFs. So that's just another reason that PDFs might not be an optimal use in terms of publishing information on your site. So that was a really great point. So I did want to mention that more broadly in the discussion. So Jamie asked a specific question. Actually, Daniel already answered that. So never mind, I'll move past that. And we'll go to Song's question. Actually, this is really good because this is about different languages. So they asked, are there any resources from Google on the impact of published translated content and their discoverability in search, i.e. published public information in Spanish versus on-the-fly machine translated Spanish? So this might be speaking to how you can use Google Translate on some pages, maybe if you have that widget, and how that actually works when you're looking to expose those different languages.
So there is one thing I'm not aware of research that we published. What I do know is that the guidelines is that if it's a machine translated, if it's a machine translation, you should block Googlebot. You should not index those pages if it's machine translated. You should only make the translations available to Google if it's like high quality translation or well, manual translation, let's call it. So that's the guidelines right now. In terms of what you should do, I'm not sure we have any content on that, but I'm guessing that, I mean, if the audience needs the translations, that's super important to have it available.
Yeah, I think it's actually one of the insights, if I recall, Bill, from last summer when we were looking initially at Question Hub, was that people were asking questions about unemployment in Spanish. And I think, Bill, actually, you all have a section on your site that's also translated in Spanish. And so I think understanding maybe the top languages that people might be speaking or read as they're coming to your site and publishing pages in those languages can actually help people better identify who are querying in those local languages. So obviously not just Spanish, although that's one of the biggest, the next biggest language here in the US, but other languages as well, just depending on the type of information that you're servicing and the demographic of people coming to your site. But Bill, maybe you want to talk about your strategy and how you all think about translating some of your pages in Spanish as it relates to search.
Yeah, we do have machine translation, but as you noted, we did take some of our quality content and we did higher quality translation and did mark those up. So they were fairly successful, but it's something that we weren't set up to do real easily. So we're looking into different ways where we can again try to get again, as you mentioned, the quality has to be at a certain level. So we've been somewhat successful, but we got more to do on that.
Awesome, thank you. And I think those are all the questions that we don't already have answers for in the Q&A or in the chat. I'm going back and forth to see. I do want to plug one more time just the one pager that we shared that has all of the links, the relevant links to Question Hub and Search Console, as well as an SEO starter guide. So if you're new to implementing structured data, definitely check that out, as that has a lot of great resources on how to get started. And all of that is listed in the one pager as well, that I dropped in the chat. I'll drop it one more time in case people didn't catch it. And then, like I said, we'll also have it in our booth. So I guess we will close. Last call for questions. Maybe I'll wait a second just in case anybody has any in the chat or Q&A. But it doesn't seem like we do. Okay, I got a thank you. So that's a good indication that maybe we're all wrapped up. So so thanks so much everyone for attending. Definitely reference the one pager that has a lot of this reference information, and we really encourage you all to implement some of these best practices. We know that many of you have critical content on your site, and we really want to make sure that users are able to easily discover and navigate that information. So please do implement that, and also check out the Search Central in case you have any other questions, as you can post them there. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, everyone.